I got time, folks. It's 5:31. We're over time. Call the meeting to order. Roll call. Supervisor Poppy, he had asked to be excused. Who else were missing? Anybody?
You have Virginia Haskell as well.
Virginia Haskell. All right. So we ask for a motion to approve the May 1st, 2023 agenda.
Before we move to approve the agenda, I'd like to offer a correction.
Okay.
In item 9, under the second site for closed session, I think there's a typo. It should be 1985, 1F9, not 1986. Because 1986 deals with collective bargaining.
Right.
Correct.
I just
Well,
know it.
Well,
Did you sit
as
here and
city
look this up?
administrator, he knows a little of this. Thank you.
Well,
I'm
that's,
sure it's
that's,
just a typo.
that's the catch
is.
of the night there, Supervisor Rom.
Just so nobody says that.
No,
we used the wrong site, because that would not be
I'm
proper
glad you
agenda.
caught it. I can tell you I wouldn't have.
Well, it depends. Are we,
That's impressive.
Scott, were your intent to cover a collective bargaining session item there? Or-
Yes.
But there is no 1986 F
Correct.
site.
All right, are we clear on this? We got what we need here?
I believe so, yes.
All right, I hope so. Fabulous. So motion to approve the agenda. Supervisor Luke, second by Yanti. Discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, approval of the April 3rd minutes.
I move to approve this.
Supervisor Romden, second by Supervisor Kroll. Is there any discussion on the minutes? All right, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Not opposed? Motion carries. Public comment. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to the committee? Does anyone wish to speak to the committee? Anyone wish to speak? Anyone? Going once. Gone. All right, moving on. Administrators report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You have the personnel report in front of you. There is one addition. On April 25th, our part-time cook, Sharda Bertrand, resigned. As a part-time position, we have started her personnel policy to, geez, I can't even think of the word. Post, thank you. Post the job ad to try to fill that. We have someone coming in temporarily to fill that position, but again, does not need committee approval but I did want to make the committee aware that the part-time cook had resigned in the jail. As for the others, you can see them there. As for both the highway worker in resignation and the economic support specialist, those are on the agenda for approval to fill.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
The only other thing that I can think of is the Register and Probate and Family Court Commissioner. We are starting to get a couple applicants in there, but that deadline is not until May 12th. And a reminder for the committee, that is a judicial appointment, so the county judge is the one that appoints that position.
We just picked.
Correct.
All right.
Like so many things,
Anything else?
Not unless there's questions, Mr. Chair.
On the appointment that the judge makes, is that subject to county board approval?
No. As for, and then within personnel, I have a sub note as to the IT specialist wage scale. So if we're done with the report, then I would have Mr. Loening give kind of an update on the IT specialist.
Proceed.
Okay, what I'm handing out here is a proposed change to the scale. Here's what we're running into. Applicants that applied, we received 5, more than 5, but a lot of these were out of state people, and I'm not quite sure why they applied. One was from California, so either they want to do remote work or something else. But so out of the 5 applicants, all 5 of them were qualified to do the job. The issue that we're running into is all 5 of them came with a current salary that's over $30 an hour. What we had proposed think 2 meetings ago was 2680 as a start. We're really not even close, and I'll give you a little history. So 2 of the candidates, one I had called and set up an interview with. Shortly after that, he had contacted me and said that
Oh, no.
oh,
That's not the one.
oh, yes, there it is. He informed me that he was offered a job in Luxembourg for $65,000 a year. And I said, well, do you still want to interview? And he said, yes. And then it was literally the next day, he had called and said that they offered, or they upped the offer to $70,000, and that was for the Luxembourg High School. There was an IT position at Luxembourg High School, and that was for $70,000, which is $33.65. So that's right in our backyard. The other candidate I had also contacted to interview. The day of the interview, he had contacted administration and basically decided not to interview, and he had taken the job elsewhere. But both of those candidates were around the $30 mark. The other 3, we've interviewed 2 of them, but I can't necessarily offer anything to them because, you know, of where we would start, and even if we could try to move up within the scale a bit, we weren't really close to even try to make an offer to any one of those individuals. So I guess what I'm proposing tonight is that we move from 2680 to at least 2844 as a start, possibly more depending on the committee's wishes. But this is a good sampling of what an IT specialist currently in the current market is making. So again, you know,
A lot of people Google and Amazon and all these are way off right now.
not in our area apparently, but I mean, there's, you know, I've obviously done my research a little bit too. There's other companies out there and things like that, you know, their specialists are in that exact same range, which makes it very, very difficult for us to find somebody in this area. And, you know, some of these applicants actually are from the area, but they're not going to take the job at the wage that we're presently offering.
Russ, I have a question.
Yeah.
I know a guy that applied, said he didn't get a call or an interview. Was he not qualified or was he passed over?
I pretty much stopped at that point because, you know, when I saw the wages that were coming in, I didn't want to go forth and do interviews, you know, and interviews are still open. The job is still open. It's open until filled.
That's what he was questioning.
Yeah. So I will continue to, you know, reach out to individuals who have applied and set up interviews with them. I just wanted to, I just felt like we needed to adjust the scale before, you know, because if, like I said, the candidates that had applied, they were all qualified. I think I did see, one that came in later and from the resume and things like that seemed qualified. Some of them aren't filling out applications either, so we need to get that straightened out as well, but they're just sending resumes in. But I felt like, you know, I think we need to adjust the scale to something that is going to be more realistic to what our applicants are showing for wages. Sorry for the small font. I have my readers on as well.
Thoughts? Committee?
I know that this is not unusual for Ross's department. I think we found that looking for workers in the highway department and human services, that it seems that our wage scale is a little bit low in certain areas. So we might want to look at this one. And maybe I see on later on the agenda, there's a discussion about a possibility of another wage study. But, you know, if the issue is the wage, and that's why we can't get people, we may want to look at it.
There's a lot of factors why people aren't wanting to work right now. Biggest factor is the labor participation rate isn't overly high in the country.
But we have more candidates.
I have not had any candidates since the ones that I've done, with the exception of the one. Like I said, I think I had four candidates from out of state, which either they're on unemployment and they need to apply, you know, to keep their unemployment going or something, or they're looking for remote work or something like that. But I don't think anybody's relocating from California to come work in Kewaunee, but
At least there wasn't a cover letter saying that. they
correct,
were looking
they're only
for some-
resumes.
Would you wish to make any adjustment? Now I'm going to move on. On once,
I would move to support the proposed increase to 2844 on the scale and adopt the scale as proposed at that starting rate.
so I have a motion to move it from 2680 starting to 2844 starting. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Masteler. Is there further discussion?
Would they stay at the step one then, or would they move up?
That's a good question.
On the start.
What happens typically, Supervisor Luce, is that you have step one, that's the starting scale at 2844. Through personnel policy, there is some discretion between step one and I believe it's step 7 to that, depending on what their qualifications are and what they're currently having, that we can make an offer anywhere between 1 and 7. If it's greater than 1 or 7, then it has to come back to the committee for approval to offer a salary higher than between step 1 and 7.
Other questions?
So are any of these people within 1 to 7 steps?
Yes, they are.
We could have offered them.
Yeah. Yep.
Then why change the scale if we can offer it?
Well, the 2680 didn't get us there. So that was why for the adjustment.
Those should be newbies, right?
Right. Somebody just out of college or,
Yeah.
you know,
But if they're more qualified and you can run them up a little bit, you'd be covering that 2887 and
So let me, and may I put out an alternative if, well, I'll wait because there's a motion on the floor.
What are you suggesting, Supervisor Yankee?
what did they want? Well,
one of the candidates was $31.20 presently. They were in 6 months. They informed us during the interview process that they were offered a lead position, which moves them up to $32 an hour. I don't know if we can get there in the current scale. That was just one candidate, though. The other candidates, you know, or the other candidate that I interviewed was around that same scale between $30 and $31 an hour. And that's what they were looking to make. That's what they were making presently.
The old scale started at 26 what?
2680. So if you,
And where was the number at for,
What would it end at?
Meet step 15.
Yeah.
Step 15 was 3189.
So you think that if you bump it up to 2844, you would have better luck?
I think so.
What about the benefit package? Is there any comparisons on that or? You get into that? I mean, sometimes the wage is less. but the
I can tell you
benefits-
from at least 2 of the applicants, they work for government.
benefits.
One works for a
Pretty hard to
city,
compete
one
with
works for a
that.
city, one's going to be working for a school district.
So do you have any applicants that are still pending?
I mean, when
You
I,
said some were out of state, one took a job in Luxembourg, so that doesn't leave many people left.
well, the out-of-state ones I didn't even include because there was like 4 of those that were, they only submitted resumes. I tried to contact them to.
How many remaining serious applicants do you have?
I have, out of the 5, I have 3 and 4, including the one that came.
Yeah.
There are 3 that have been interviewed, the one that has not been interviewed as of.
Other questions, further discussion? All right. You have a motion before you. Have a move the starting wage from 2680 to 2844. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right. Approval to fill vacancies.
Chair, with the recent resignation of Jason Reinke at the highway shop, we now have, it's 2 vacancies currently, is that correct? Correct, Mr. Everett? So, but only 1 new one, and so at least we will need approval from the committee to be able to fill the now 2nd vacancy in the highway shop.
Okay, so do I have a motion to fill the vacancies in the highway shop?
I'll make that motion.
Supervisor Poppy, second by Supervisor Masteler. Discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Economic Support Specialist.
Thank you. As you saw on your report as well, Cassie Breidenhagen had resigned as of May 4th. Again, we have, there's vacancy. That unit is only 3 people. And we do know that the workload is going to ramp up substantially now that you're having a number of it's not the unemployment. What's the program?
COVID unwinding.
Yes, the unwinding for what program?
COVID.
COVID, thank you, of which therefore before you were just automatically eligible, now you have to be eligible for some of these things. And so that's gonna place a lot more workload on the economic support unit. And therefore, it is important that we fill that position to get that back up to snuff.
So we're seeking approval for Economic Support Specialist, to fill the position.
Correct.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the filling of that position.
Supervisor Romden, second by Supervisor Augustine. Discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Parks caretaker.
Okay, this is, it is a misnomer and I apologize. We had put this on the agenda more as a notification than specifically a filling. Because actually what we'll be looking at is not the filling of a vacancy, but looking at a new position. And I think that Mr. Myers will be able to explain the need and the justification much better than I.
Mr. Myers in the hot seat. Been there a lot.
Is this what this is, the hot seat?
Been there a lot this year. Go ahead.
Obviously, talking with my committee, we're looking at possibly adding a position. We've added a lot of different roles now with Winter Park, especially taking on extra jobs. We're adding new things at ATV Park, new things at our parks. There's a lot more extra work being added on. I would like some time to go back to my committee with actual numbers and see what's feasible in our budget for coming back here. But this is more of just a heads up. We're looking into this, see where we can go with it.
So just as to add in a little bit, we currently have 2 parks caretakers, so this would be looking at the creation of a 3rd. I know that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chairman Yankee, that the committee has had some preliminary discussions about workloads and whether that is Winter Park or otherwise, and that the likelihood or the issue coming before the committee will be discussed thoroughly, but there is definitely need for a person.
Where are you at with Winter Park for next year at this point? I obviously with what you went through this year, one of the things that came out of that discussion was we kind of got a little pressed for time.
Yeah. I've actually been in contact with members of that organization, so I'm hoping to have a meeting sometime in the next couple of weeks, just preliminary, get discussions going.
Still got snow on the ground this season and you're already moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, they groomed it today.
Yeah, well, it's not- they can go away now. We're good for a
Oh,
while.
in my neighborhood in Luxembourg, you could have.
There was plenty, yeah.
Very good, excellent.
We'll see
So,
what happens. with
so what
that.
you're looking at is with all of the rearrangement here, you're looking at the possibility of,
Adding another person, obviously finding a good number of part-time help to help cover everything it's been difficult the last 3 years. Obviously, we can say COVID, whatever, but it seems like part-time work's been hard for everyone to come by.
so when do you anticipate coming before us with a request for this position?
Hopefully within the next month or two.
Okay, so you're gonna have lots
If
of
the
good,
Parks Committee has, doesn't have any further questions, we'll go through that. And
so you have lots of good numbers for us.
Yep. I would rather have everything ready to go.
We anticipate this position would be pretty easy to fill, or what are the qualifications for the
Yeah.
position?
I think we could go. It's gonna be, I'd have to look at the updated wage scale by, we're right around the $20 range. It's obviously gonna be, the myriad of everything it covers.
2067 is
What is it?
2067 is step 1.
From the zoo to Winter Park, there's a lot of different things we cover, so I mean, there's a lot of responsibilities in there.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
So from the zoo to Winter Park,
Right,
there's
what do you anticipate the starting salary on the scale on that to be?
about 2067 if that's step 1.
Step 1 is 2067 for the parks caretaker, and I think, if I may,
Yeah.
is that the park, because of our parks department, which I believe is pretty unique among parks departments throughout the state, is that we have a ski hill and a tubing hill and a trail and a zoo and parks and boat landings and a variety of, we have such a wide variety of things that we're needing some parks caretakers that aren't all the same, but may have some strengths in some other areas, i.e. being able to do Winter Park, but also being able to step in and take on some of the zoo and some of those types of things, not necessarily always Mr. Fix-It, but more Johnny on the spot can be there every weekend when it's winter, those types of things.
Excellent. Anything else from us?
And all I have. Thank you for hearing me out.
Well, thank you. All right, discussion of wage study.
Yeah, I wanted to put that on just for some general discussion with the committee. I'm not advocating for anything at this present time, but I had also placed it on the finance. Let me back up. What I have experienced over the last few months as county administrator is we are now finally starting as a county to see the effects that other counties had been feeling months, if not well over a year ago, in the difficulty in trying to recruit and attract new candidates for job openings. We're seeing that in the sheriff's department. We're seeing that in the highway department. We're seeing that in parks, in human services. And so with that, in looking at, in examining what other counties are paying as step 1 and what their wage scales are, there is a significant discrepancy between the two. And so when I was seeing that during the finance committee, I had asked the finance committee if they would set aside some funds that if the executive committee would eventually give approval, that we could contract out for a wage study. Now, I have done a very cursory type of thing where I get roughly about 15 other counties. They give me their wage plans, their pay plans, and I kind of do a comparison. But I am going to be the first one to say that I am not a professional human resources person, especially when it comes from a compensation standpoint. I'm not a compensation specialist. And so I think it may be good for the county to engage and contract with a company to do a wage study, so that way we can have a better idea as to where we are with regards to not only our labor pool area, which is Northeast Wisconsin, but just labor pool in general, and see how we compare to our peers as well as to our neighbors. That does not in any way obligate us to meet those same dollars if it's higher. But I do believe that for you to make good decisions, it would be better than just having, and no disrespect to Ross, no disrespect to any department head, but I think that it would be better for us to get that kind of professional analysis from folks that do that for a living as information for us to consider when we talk about potential changes to the pay plan. And again, I'm not looking for anything at this present time. I was just wanting to kind of get a general sense from the committee as to what their feelings are towards a wage study.
When you do a wage study like this, do you also look at what the private sector is paying?
I'm unsure. I am going to assume, though I am going to say that I am not sure, that I'm going to assume that with a number of the positions, because they're government positions, that they will compare government to government. There may be some where there could be some possible private sector comparisons, but administrative assistants, if you have sheriff's deputies, that's a little bit difficult to compare to others, land conservationists, different things like that. Could there be some when it deals with attorneys, when it deals with highway workers that are needing CDLs or administrative support? Yes. But again, I am going to assume that the majority of that is done more from government to government.
How much does a professional wage study run roughly?
I think it depends on the size of the county, but I had just seen one that was done last year for Barron County, and they're smaller than we are, and that was about $50,000. And when we did the,
75 grand.
I'm sorry.
So 50 to 75 grand.
Well, what I did again, and I picked a number, is when I did for the finance committee, I asked that $75,000 be set aside. And it may be different as well in that this will be the first time in probably a decade that the county has done one. And so that may mean them having to build more of that database from scratch than what a lot of counties do, is that every 5 years they conduct the wage study. And they just they make that as a regular part of their analysis.
Great. Any thoughts from the committee?
Would that be counties similar to our size or local counties in our area?
I would guess, and if we're interested, what I can do is I can bring more information. I would assume is one that we would want to talk about this region, because again, we compete with Door, Brown, Manitowoc, drive about an hour, and that's the labor pool that we compete for. But in that same respect, no different than kind of what I did with my pay plan, is in that same respect, you also have to look at what I always like to call the smell test, is that Brown County is much larger than we are. Outagamie is much larger than we are. So how do we compared to other peer counties that are about our size, and what's their geography. But again, that's more for the professionals to be able to explain what their methodology would be. And I can try to give some of that as well. I guess I just wasn't sure if the committee was interested at all, and if they want more information, I can get more information. If the committee says we don't need one, we're fine just the way we are, then there's no need to get additional information.
So I don't know what the thoughts of the committee are. I mean, my thoughts are, I mean, we don't need to spend $75,000 of taxpayer money to have them come back and tell us you need to spend another $250,000 or whatever extra in salaries. That's what it's going to be. But speak to it.
Scott, what do you know about sign-on bonuses and stuff?
Different counties are doing different things. Some are doing sign-on bonuses, some are
I
not.
was thinking like for highway. Something that would help.
Well, there's a variety of different things that people are doing. So let's call it sign-on bonuses, or for highway, fine, we'll train you, we'll get you your CDL. Or what will happen, depending on where you're coming from, we'll help to put money towards your relocation costs. Or, okay, you start here and let's call it a retention bonus. Okay, you start, we'll give you $500. If you're here for a year, we'll give you another 1,000. If you go for another year, we'll give you another 1,000. There's a whole variety of different things that folks can do. And my conversations with a number of counties, especially in the northern counties where they're very small populations, they just had to raise the salaries. I know that for social workers, you're talking at least $4 more an hour. You're talking even for highway workers up northern counties, you're talking $4 more for highway workers. And again, part of the reason why is the difficulty in having that is attracting them up to that area. And then what's the housing and everything else? Because now if you're moving and you're going to stay, now you have to buy a house. We know housing is expensive as well. So there's a whole number of factors and a whole number of different things that counties can do. It's just, and we could have that conversation too, is what would we like to do to try to encourage more
These are all
recruitment?
things though that we can figure out on our own. We don't need to spend $75,000 to have an outside company come in and tell us what we already know. The market's tight, and we're going to have to do what we did tonight with the IT specialist and various positions to be able to recruit help. But again, if the committee has a strong desire to pursue it, we can do so.
What are the exit interviews telling us on resignations? I mean, obviously, we're seeing resignations every month. What is our exit interview telling us? Why are they leaving?
There's always a number of different factors. We know that with some of the folks that have left, it has been pay. Whether that has been in the human services standpoint, whether that has been in the courthouse, IT is another one. Some of them is just work-life balance, where some of them, and I'm just saying what they responded to me. Some of it has to do with the work-life balance and being able to therefore have a certain amount of time to work, be able to work remotely as well. So.
Many times have a wage study been done, the rates come back too high, it gets shelved and we pay the bill.
Correct. And that's has always been my fear. If I remember when I first came back in 2015, that Ed Dorner had done at least 2, if not 3, and the discrepancy was so high that the board decided to do nothing. And so I have that same fear. I guess what we could do, and again, I leave this up to the committee, I'm not pushing, is that if you do a wage study and the discrepancy is large, the committee could decide to shelve it. The committee could decide, well, we're not going to fill that complete gap. We're only going to fill 50% or whatever that percentage is. Or they could say that we're gonna fill that gap or some percentage, but we're gonna do it over the course of 3 years or 5 years or whatever that is.
That would be irrelevant though, because in the course of 3 or 5 years, these other counties would potentially be raising as well. So it
Well,
wouldn't close
what you
that.
could do still then is, as you're doing the raise is on top of what would be the cost of living and step, you're raising that. What you're also seeing a number of counties do is from a wage scale standpoint, you have some folks that have, you see step 1, 2, and 3. You take them off. Step 4 is now step 1, and you add 3 steps on the back end, and that's where your new step 1 is. Some are doing that as well.
Thoughts of the committee?
I agree with Dan said that, you know, like we did with IT tonight, if we have problems in a certain department, we have to look at them and see what kind of adjustments need to be made.
And I agree with what you're saying, Supervisor Lukes. I only have one small caveat is this may then, if we do it in a piecemeal fashion, you may then have departments coming on a regular basis. Well, Parks just got, IT just got something. Well, Human Services as well, Parks is that.
They're doing it now.
You do that now.
That's
That'd just be a shame.
but, and that's the point that I guess I'm trying to highlight. Is you have a choice, and I'm not saying, and it is up to you. You can do it in a piecemeal fashion, or you can try to do it as a holistic fashion. That's completely up to how the committee wants to do it, because that's the authority you are given. Absolutely.
Other thoughts, supervisors?
Kind of like cost of living adjustment. Get rid of the first
I
sentence.
would agree to it on a case by case basis. I mean, we're seeing it in the private sector too. Employees have been with us for 10, 15 years. We're starting these guys a lot lower than we started those, but it's just the industry today. That's the way it is.
So
So
you're the small kid on the block. You have to.
I don't know, a wage study looks at the whole picture. I mean, they look at the wages, but you know, sometimes the quality of life here means something that's not included in that. And maybe $1 or $2 or something.
I'll challenge that slightly, Supervisor Lukes. I would have agreed more if we talked about, well, what a conservation specialist does in Kewaunee County may be different than what a conservation specialist does in Manitowoc County. And therefore, the amount of work in Manitowoc County is more, and therefore supports a higher wage or something to that. And I know that wage studies will look at some of that. As for the cost of living, that one is a harder one, because I know that we've had numerous conversations about the cost of living increase that we give with wages. And I know that I had had previous conversations with former board chair Widener about that. And when we look at the data, the cost of a home is not significantly different. The cost of groceries isn't significantly different. In fact, if we look at some of those things, at times it's more expensive to live in Kewaunee County than it would in a larger county, especially from a grocery standpoint. They don't have the volume. When you look at starter homes are becoming very much the same, regardless of where the county's at. Utility rates are roughly the same from a WPS standpoint. So if there is some discrepancy, it's usually not large. But I understand what you're
They
saying.
just said Brown, I just heard this 2 days ago on the news. The average home in Brown County is 291,000.
Right.
And I think
So
that's,
it is higher.
that is higher
Cost of
than what's
living
here.
is-
I mean, not that there's a lot available here
But the
either.
bottom line is, we can pay what we can pay, and the tax base is what we have. Mr. Every wanted to make a comment.
Everything everybody said is all correct. You know, and when considering all this, there's a bunch of different ideas that gotta be considered. And as every one of these requests comes up, or even talk about Facebook, my comment is gonna be, each department is gonna have their own little details that you're gonna have to be fleshed washed out. So let's just say we raised the starting wage for our highway worker position, all right? We've got 6 other people that have started since the pay scale, got implemented that are gonna have questions about that. So it might not only be that one, we're asking for that 1 or 2 positions. I could be coming here and asking for 6 positions to be adjusted and the numbers associated with it. So, and human services might be the same way. It's a little bit of a trickle down effect, but, employee satisfaction, everything we talked about, it's all part of this. Right? It's all part of the package to keep somebody here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anything else, supervisors, committee? All right. I'm gonna entertain a motion then to go into closed session.
Closed session.
Supervisor Augustine, second by Supervisor Kroll. All in favor of the motion to go into closed session, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're in closed session.